Hey, Jared here. In this video, I'm going to be exploring very quickly from a big 10,000 foot perspective how parts, voices, thoughts, mentalities, the psychology of it all, of overcoming binging, food addiction, compulsive eating, emotional eating, um, and really addictive behaviors in general, how the psychology works with the physicality, the nutrition, the hunger, the fullness. I guess other addictions might not have as much of a component of the hunger, fullness, and so forth. But eating properly, how the food mixes in with the psychology. In the previous video, we started with the psychology. We did a lot of parts work. And so I'm going to spend less time on the parts work today and just a little bit more time on the food, again from this big picture. So long story short, two sides of the same coin. Psychology and food, food and psychology. You need both, okay? Now, whether you go this first or that first or this first and that first, doesn't really matter. You need both. You can start with the parts. Sometimes that's best for people where you start with the parts. And you can reference the previous video. I'll link it down there below. I just did a long guided meditation on working with parts. That's where you're working with thoughts, these different voices, these criticisms, the inner critic, and all that inner battle and obsessive thinking and and all that stuff is in the parts. But if you just do the parts, it can actually work just fine, by the way. Some people just do the parts and they heal binging. They heal emotional eating just through parts work, and vice versa. Some people just do the food stuff and that gets them over the binging. So, you know, that's just the 10,000 foot view of food and psychology. Some people just need one, some people just need the other. Oftentimes you need both, but I guess it does work. Sometimes I've seen both where people just needed the food. I'm always a little skeptical when someone says they're better after the food. I know this stuff can come back, but the food certainly works for some people as well. So anyways, that's the psychology stuff. Again, reference the past video for more on that. Now, intuitive eating or the other stuff, the physicality, gentle nutrition, hunger, fullness, satisfaction, feeling content. Let's talk about these briefly because I didn't in the past video, but we can go through very, very quickly the foundational eating habits. And let me just say very, very quickly, oftentimes I hate it when someone tells me stuff. Like, I don't know about you, but when someone gives me advice, I cringe. I hate it. Like I'm a coach, right? I've been doing this for a few years, the coaching stuff, been working with people with food struggles for a lot longer, but been coaching for about 6 years now. And so sometimes friends are, they'll say, oh, have you tried Pinterest? Have you tried Instagram? And it's like, yeah, I freaking tried that before. God, shut up. I hate it. It always bugs the crap out of me. So I'm about to do this food advice, which you'll probably have heard before. And I'll just say that oftentimes I really don't tell people. I actually ask them to journal, ask them to keep a food diary, and they'll figure this stuff out, this food stuff, on their own, just by like journaling, having a committed practice. And I think that's a lot better when someone is journaling and tracking and being mindfully aware of how food is for them, and they kind of figure out this stuff for themselves based on their journaling. So oftentimes I'll start with journaling, right? But anyways, we'll talk about that another time. We're going to talk about the food right here. So long story short, when you journal, you will notice that when you binge, a big part of it is because you somehow were hungry or not satisfied physically. Let's talk about the hunger. You ate breakfast, now it's dinner time. You ate dinner, you think everything's fine, but guess what? You didn't eat the whole day, so you're still hungry, even though you just ate dinner and you might have room in your stomach. The stomach hasn't digested, whatever, you binge. So that when you journal about this and you look back at your eating patterns, you quickly see, oh, I gotta have that snack. I gotta have that lunch. So principle number one is eating regularly. Eating regularly throughout the day. breakfast, lunch, snack, dinner in a nutshell. You can do give or take a meal, whatever, 3 meals or 5, you know, breakfast, lunch, dinner, 2 snacks, or just breakfast, lunch, dinner, 3 meals, whatever, some combination. But you got to eat regularly, right? Principle number 1. And then when you eat, you got to have protein. I mean, it's more complex than that, but we're keeping things simple, just the basics. You got to have protein. Okay? Chicken, nuts, yogurt, eggs, cheese, dairy, soy, tons of protein, meats, protein, chicken, protein powder, whatever. Protein helps keep you full. Protein helps the food last. Instead of eating just like 5 bagels or 2 bagels, let's say you had 2 full bagels. I mean, that'll get you full for about 2 hours, maybe, if it's just the bagels. When you add on some cream cheese and maybe if you're going real fancy with some salmon, that's going to last longer. That bagel, I mean, 2 bagels is, well, for me it would be a lot, but maybe for some people it's normal, but whatever. If you add that cream cheese and salmon, that protein is going to extend the duration the food lasts with you. You're not going to get hungry as quickly. So a lot of this food stuff is minimizing hunger by feeling content, by feeling, content after you eat. Not too full, good full. And also the fullness, if you check back in an hour, 2, 3 hours later, it hasn't gone away. Like your stomach isn't growling 2, 3, 4 hours later. You've eaten enough protein and fat too, that your hunger is not ravenous, it's not growling. Maybe 2.5, 3 hours later, it is starting to growl. That's fine. I mean, it doesn't need to be like 4 hours every time, but like you want like 3 hours before, say 3 hours before your stomach is starting to growl again, right? And this can be tough for people, by the way. I mean, hunger is when you're beginning to eat regularly, your hunger cues might not be there. They might be very confusing. You might not know exactly when you're starting to be ravenously hungry. It's tough. It can be tough to know when you're comfortably full. It's tough. It is tough. It definitely is tough. But that's the food stuff in a nutshell, in a quick nutshell. That's the food stuff. Now, you can start with the food, with the basic journaling, and kind of look at your eating patterns. And you can do that for a couple weeks. And by tracking your eating with mindfulness, not worrying about the calories, but just noticing hunger, fullness, making a few notes about how long food keeps you full. Even if your hunger and fullness cues are a little bit disrupted, not quite there yet, you will start to even out the eating habits. Even if you were kind of in a cycle, eating all over the place, or even if you're not sure on whether you're doing it properly, like generally speaking, you'll be good enough. You'll get a foundation. You'll be eating more regularly just because you'll be tracking a little bit more. You'll be a little bit more mindful on getting enough food, and a little bit more mindful on reducing ravenous hunger, and you'll be a little bit more aware of eating foods that help you feel satisfied. And that alone just can be life-changing. Life-changing. Seriously. So that's the food stuff. Someone just emailed me the other week saying they're just by the food stuff, they were good. So there's like 2 things. Sometimes the food stuff isn't the whole picture, though. Don't get me wrong. I think if you want to go deeper, that's where the parts work comes in. That's where you start learning about the body image, the food police, these different parts. I use intuitive eating language, but the parts really are my passion about that. Okay. I think I've covered everything I wanted. Yeah. If you want tips on these, by the way, there's a free community down there, free private community hosted through Mighty Networks. Would love it if you joined. And it's growing a little bit. It'd be fun to have you. I think that's all I got today. Yeah, okay. I think that's about it.